I'm Amber Davies and welcome to Call to Stage. This is the space where musical theatre takes centre stage. From unforgettable backstage stories with incredible special guests to insights from my life and my theatre journey. We're leaving it all on the mic every single week, so let's jump in. Hi guys, welcome back to Call to Stage with me, Amber Davies. Broadway Edition. I have someone incredible sitting next to me, and I honestly can't believe you're here. It's the wonderful Ryan Vasquez.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
I really
you for
appreciate
coming. What do you think of my American accent?
I'm missing it because you sound like you're from England.
Damn it. Now, I always start my podcast with one question. Pick any role you've ever played. What would be your pre-show ritual?
Interesting. So I've played Bat Boy in Bat Boy the Musical, very niche, odd show about a National Enquirer article where half person, half bat was like running, escaped from a cave or something. And I did it in high school as well as in college. And so when I did it in high school, I had that like invincible 16-year-old voice and body and everything where you're just like, it doesn't matter. You can stay up until like 4 a.m. writing a paper and go in and do it. But even by college, I remember like, oh, this is going to be a little tougher. I shaved my head, everything like it was very university, like we're going for it. Like, okay. and so did all the things. But as part of the pre-show for that show, they would, the curtain would rise. And hidden amongst the set, I was hanging upside down in the rafters of the theater, which like for a minute or two is like fun. But for like 3 or 4 minutes, you're starting to be like, is this? And of course, like it's college. There's no union member being like, well, excuse me, like we actually need this. So so the blood rushing and everything, that was sort of the pre-show. And I hope I never have to do it. Honestly, I have a thing about pre-shows in general. I can respect it, but I hope that I never have to like be sitting on stage for 30 minutes, like glaring at the audience before I start a show. That's just like, I'm happy to start with the downbeat.
Yeah. Some people have to have a certain suite before they go on, or they have to sing a certain note, or they have to say a certain line. Have you ever had that where you've got into like a system of doing it? If I don't do this, I'm not going to have a great show. Oh yeah,
absolutely. Like I mean, first of all, I have to eat like I'm like a dog that's vomiting. So I only eat like rice and chicken and just like plain food because otherwise like my body just starts to get irregular in this way where it's like my throat starts to get like phlegmy and stuff and all that. So it's really like a constant like 24-hour thing. Sleep is so huge for me too. Like if I don't get a good night's sleep, I can just guarantee the show is going to be a mess. Like just like mentally, physically, everything. And I do now in the Notebook, I sing through the first song that I sing, Leave the Light On. Like I sing through it in the dressing room, like beforehand, just because it's gorgeous. Yeah. It's odd. Like every show is different, but I had, we're in the opening and then they follow the young couple for a little while before they check in with the middle couple. So I have about 20 minutes to kind of like really rev up and warm up during the show, which is rare. So like my half hour can be kind of social and nice and just getting ready and all of that. And
that
then
is
I can,
gorgeous.
Lock in during that.
We will get to the Notebook soon. I did see it in April. I saw you perform, and I have to say it's probably the best musical I've actually ever seen. And then I've listened to the soundtrack over and over again. So the fact that you're sitting here and you just said the title of your first song is crazy to me. I'm really fangirl.
Yeah, I'm happy because honestly, like it is such a moving human show, which a lot of the time, like there are things that you go to for entertainment value. There are things that you go to just be like amazed by something physical that's happening or like a million dancers on stage or whatever. And I'm thankful to be part of something that like really requires people to lean in. So I'm happy that you're a fan of it because often it's easy to be fans of things that are just kind of like, shoveled down your throat of like, exactly.
This is real. It's timeless.
Yeah.
For me, this is like discovering how the Broadway stars work because obviously I'm from London, from the UK. I know how the West End works and how you like train to get there. So I read that you trained at the University of Michigan and you had a BFA in MT.
Yeah. So more and more what's interesting, like there, I think used to be this, $3, 2 bags, 1 me from Annie. It's like you show up with your tap shoes and you're just like, I hope I get to be on Broadway. And you kind of could. Yeah. And now more and more with these degree programs popping up, for a while there, it was actually the largest growing major in America was musical theater because of, like Glee, Hamilton, these things that like brought it into the mainstream. Yeah. And so or back into the mainstream rather. So it's interesting, like now there are all of these real paths where people are going to universities that I had heard of, but also ones that you never have that now have these programs and degree programs, and with more people like leaving the industry to teach and going places to like have kids in North Carolina, and now you're teaching at Elon, and now this program is really built up like in this place. So I grew up in San Jose, California, which is home to the largest children's theater in the country.
Oh, wow.
So we would do these like really age inappropriate shows of like Miss Saigon and these things of like, but with like budgets that because of the National Endowment of the Arts and all this, that it was really built out, and they cast everybody who auditions. So it was a lot of the time casts of like 80 to 100 people would be on stage. A lot of folks just kind of like building community with other kids, but then every once in a while there'd be a person or two who are like, I think I'm going to do this for real. Like I really want to try this, you know? And I was obviously one of those people, but I think also in the States, at least, there's not a lot of encouragement to have a career in the arts. You have to have this sort of backup plan all the time. You know, you're like, it's not sort of real in that way. You won't be able to have a family or an apartment or anything. And so I remember thinking when I go to college, I'm going to have to pivot and do something like real, you know, and my mom actually was the person who said, you know, if I'm going to help you at all with this college process of like applying to schools and everything, she's an educator. So she was like, if I'm going to help you at all, like you have to apply to one school for theater just to try. Yeah. And so the University of Michigan, it's a great university. It's the largest public university alumni base in the country. So I knew I would have a big like college experience. And then also they have this awesome program. I went to Chicago and auditioned and sort of said to myself, like, it's thousands of people audition and 20 get in. So I was like, if I get in, then I'll do this. But if not, like, it's just a sign. And I did. And I just like never really looked back. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
So that really surprises me about training. Like it kind of was never a thing. Broadway's absolutely huge. Like even when you go to Times Square, like the whole place is dedicated to theater.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Far more than it is in London.
Oh yeah. Oh for sure. Yeah. No, I agree. Like it's even just revenue wise, because like money talks in this country, right? It's like it's like revenue wise, we're pulling in so much money for the city and tourism and all that. And you saw during COVID there was this like disconnect where folks were like, oh, well, people will come to Yankees games, or people will come to see the Knicks, or they'll come to see the architecture or whatever. It's like there's this huge hotbed of like tourism and stuff. The reason you go to Vegas to see these casinos and these things, the reason a lot of folks come to New York is to see a show or two, and they end up seeing maybe 3 or 4 shows because they enjoy themselves. And so the importance of it has really like grown to me over the years, of realizing like really how integral it is to the city and the country and stuff.
I love that. Yeah. Now getting on to your unbelievable career. You debuted in Wicked. So your Broadway debut was Wicked the musical.
Yes. And I don't know if we're like close to the same age, but for me generationally, that was just like the ultimate. I mean, like it's ridiculous. Like I grew up like listening to the cast recording and like knew Wicked so well. And I have these like awful, embarrassing recordings of myself at like 3 in the morning in college being like, if I could be in Wicked for the rest of my life, I would, man.
We have to get them.
I know. Yeah, somewhere Mark Zuckerberg has them, but it's like, I really, I think like growing up, again, it just felt so like out of the realm of possibility to be in something like that. And so I was living for like, I was there for a year and a week. I remember like virtually every day I was in the ensemble and I covered Fierro, so I got to do like that little dream part too. The thing I remember most is the costumes. Like those costumes are so iconic. Like the Emerald City, like gorgeous, like tux tails and like the glasses. And I did take the glasses when I left, which you should never do. But I had them for a long time. I auctioned them off for charity. But I wore them every once in a while. And like just like the Oz Dust costumes and like the all of that stuff when I was putting on, I was like, I'm in a Wicked. Like this is out of control. It really is elite. It really is. Like, and also like the show really holds up. I went back to see it a few years ago to see some friends who were debuting in it. And I'm like, it's all about like silencing dissidents. The animals like want to speak, but they're like silencing their voices. And like, there's this like fraudulent kind of like governmental figure in the wizard who's like, I mean, like, it's really like deep. And I read the book when I was in it and I was like, oh, wow, this is really reflective of like a lot of what we're going through. It was just very neat. Like, it's not just like Wicked. It's like, it's a real deep show. It's cool.
But so you started like quite major. You started high.
Yeah.
Did you think? Sure. You started there.
I definitely worked before that in some jobs that were less cool, but yes, for sure.
But you're broad, like, you know.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I was very lucky.
And then you were in the original cast of Waitress.
Yeah.
which I watched on the flight over here yesterday.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But I didn't know you were in it.
Well, so I'm not in the pro shot, but because they did that actually after the pandemic. So they came back after the reopening and they did a pro shot with Sarah, obviously, as Jenna, and then with some of the cast that were like around, some original folks and like whoever was available to do it. Yeah, like that's such a great like example too, just for people who are listening who might be artists or doing this. Like, so Waitress was at ART, a theater in Boston, before they did Broadway.
Yes.
And I auditioned for the ART production, and they were just like flat no. They're just like, nope, you're not right for it, like on to the next. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, okay, you audition for stuff, get no's all the time, and moved on. But because of the way the show kind of shifted in Boston, like as they really learned the characters and did this stuff, when they came back to New York, they were reshuffling things all around and needed covers. And now that these roles were a little more built out, they really knew what they were looking for this Broadway run. So I went in again and auditioned and got it. And it's like sometimes even the same opportunity like will come back around in this odd way. People who say like, I've auditioned for Hamilton 15 times and like I'll never get it. It's like 16 is looking pretty good. You know, it's like you really are building relationships. Not to mention like the Too Long Don't Read version is of course that like the guy who cast Waitress, Pat Goodwin, like I had been a reader for him for some of the kids in Finding Neverland, and Diane, who directed Finding Neverland, was also directing Waitress. And so like these weird little bricks are laid and you're thinking like, is this worth it? Like this like minimum wage job reading for auditions. And then a year later, it turns out like you're in the room with those people and they're like, oh, we know you and we trust you. It's nice. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Also, I've never actually seen Waitress. I've only ever listened to it, and I've always just listened to Jenna's songs because it's my custom in years to come. But I didn't know how sad it was.
It is sad. It is sad.
I was sobbing, like literally hysterically crying. We'll put the clip in. I was literally sobbing.
It has that like Notebook thing going on too, where it's like, are you crying because you're sad, or are you crying because like life is beautiful?
Yeah.
You know, like it's like kind of all of it. You know,
ending.
Yeah, it really is, and ahead of its time. I think like that show really came out in terms of just like centering her story and like as like a single mom and all of that. It's like that. It's of course a movie like that was popular, but kind of a niche like odd thing. And then the musical really blew up. Like with Sarah's help and everything too. But I'm really proud of that.
Even in London, it blew up.
Totally, yeah.
Now let's talk about Hamilton, because this is ridiculous what I'm about to read.
Sure.
So you made history as an actor, because you're the only actor ever to play Alexander Hamilton, James Reynolds, Philip Schuyler, Aaron Burr, George Washington, James Madison, Hercules Mulligan, Thomas Jefferson, and Lafayette.
You did it, yeah. It's mostly that. I mean, so yes. First of all, I think that's still true. And, and second of all, I think because when I got Hamilton initially, I went in to play this ensemble role that covers Hamilton, Burr, and George Washington, which already is like a lift. And it was at the beginning of the process where I think they were kind of looking to figure out like what coverage options would really work. Like a lot of these long running shows, that track you see that's in that costume, it always covers like Fiyero, for instance. Like we just know that that's going to be the thing. And the other cover for Fiyero is always that guy with the cane in the Emerald City thing. It's really worked out. But it was kind of at the beginning of Hamilton. They had just mounted that Chicago production, which was sitting down there, and then they were trying to get a tour out. And so they were trying to figure out, I think, like what exactly would work. So I went and did it for a year on the road and played those roles, and it was super fun. I am from the Bay Area, like from San Jose, right outside of San Francisco, and we did San Francisco for 5 months. That was the beginning of the tour, so that was so cool. And then we did LA for 5 months, which is also exciting in its own way.
Yeah.
And then we did a couple other cities, and then a bunch of us left because it had been a year. So it was really like, people say, oh, you've toured. I'm like, well, it was 5 months in like two of the biggest cities in the country. Tours. It's like, I don't like claim to have toured and really done that thing. Like, cause I know that it can be kind of like a slog. So then after that, they brought me to the Broadway company to continue that role with that coverage. And it was just getting to be a lot. Like Hamilton, I mean, everyone's seen it now. It's like, or at least the pro shot, like Hamilton is a lot. Like my body, my voice, everything was starting to get that big fatigue, you know? And so I was thinking, I would probably leave after that 6 months. It brought me back to New York. I was happy there, and then I would move on to something else. And again, as with these long running things, they're like, whoa, like, wait, like if you're going to leave and you're going to, the costumes are going to go to waste and all this stuff. They're like, no, like we'll keep you for whatever,
He's more money.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was at the time, I mean, not that they don't have it now, but they were dishing it out. So I was like, okay, I will, but I want to move off stage because the day-to-day grind and then sometimes doing Hamilton for a full week and then going back to the ensemble, I was just getting run down. And so they had a standby position open up. And the deal was kind of like, if you go off stage to stand by, you should pick up some more coverage. So, which I was eager to do.
Yeah.
So I picked up like the Davies role, Thomas Jefferson, and the Oak
Casually.
role, like Mulligan Madison. Yeah. And I think I did Mulligan Madison the least of anything. I think I did it like under 10 times. But Burr, Hamilton, and George Washington I've done like hundreds of times each.
Wow.
And Lafayette like a few times.
I do
too,
love
but
Lafayette.
Yeah, that was super
He's
fun.
my fave.
It got added too late, but I did do Lafayette on my birthday. I remember that.
Did
So that was like a nice one. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
What was the hardest role out of them all? Hamilton.
I think Burr, just because, it's a great part, but it's so involved in virtually every moment, like whether you're observing it or not, and like just being engaged for that 3 hours is a lift. And then Leslie was really doing a lot, and that's a compliment. Like, but he was dancing, he was like putting himself in numbers that are like, oh, I could do that. And like, so it's not just like you're off to the side kind of watching it. It's like you're dancing, and then immediately you need to be like calm, cool as a cucumber, which of course Leslie is, and like rapping and doing this thing, and then you're back to really hitting it. So it's like that felt like the most involved thing. But I mean, playing Hamilton is also like obviously amazing. I always say it's like paid therapy. Like you show up and go through every conceivable human emotion like in 2 hours, and you're like, which is nice.
It's actually my favorite musical of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
it's genius.
Yeah. I love a story that can teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's so educational. Like you
totally.
learn so much in like a personal way.
And to have created a show where they tell you the end at the beginning and still by the end you're like hoping that it doesn't end that way or worrying, like that is unbelievable. Like again, like The Notebook does this too. Like in the movie of The Notebook, of course, the fact that it's the same couple all the way through is a reveal. But in the show, they know they can't do that because everybody knows. So they just say right away. So you do know they're going to come back to each other. And the whole time you're watching it and kind of like, like you're tense about it when like they told you what it's going to be. Yeah. So like that's really a testament to the storytelling that it still exists in that way. It's so cool.
And Hamilton's grave's here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's like up at my house. Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
It's by your house.
Yeah, well, so the house is up by my house, like in Uptown in Harlem. Yeah.
Oh,
like,
okay.
When they're singing It's Quiet Uptown, like where they went to, like it's literally like it was like a block away from where I used to live. Now it's a little further, but yeah, I've been totally. Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, because you're not from New York, do you still get like, oh my gosh, New York vibe?
Yeah, I mean the oh my gosh is sometimes like with an expletive, but yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely like oh my gosh, like wow, I'm so grateful to be here. And sometimes like walking to work at 6 p.m. through Times Square, it's like oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, I mean totally. Honestly, like so Joy Woods, who plays Middle Alley, her last show was this past Sunday, and like the audience was so alive. Like people were so appreciative of her and like showing that like it was in those moments where New York feels like a community for a second, because it is so disconnected. Like it can feel that way when you're on the train. Like everybody's on their phones. Like nobody's really like looking at each other. It's really quite sad to me. And like when we come together as a group, that's why live theater, I'm so thankful to be in this career, and especially after the pandemic, because for a while it really seemed like we were not going to ever have that. And it was really, really scary to think that people wouldn't be able to just like gather and be vulnerable in a time where like people are being pulled apart because they cannot be vulnerable and they cannot like look at themselves and look at others and be like forgiving and empathetic and all of it. And so like to juice that up in community with people in New York is like, it's amazing, because it's like in the place where you'd expect it the least to gather with 1,000 people who are sobbing at the end of a show, being like, we've done it, like it's very sweet.
I was exhausted. So let's naturally move on to The Notebook.
Sure.
I loved it. Would I go and see it again? No. It took me about 3 days to recover, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
I was drained. And I think I've never in my life sat in an audience and been like noticed everybody was hysterically crying around. Everyone together. We were all as one. And I just thought, I've never experienced this in my life.
It's amazing though.
Yeah.
Like it's beautiful to me.
When you're on stage, like how does that feel?
Oh yeah, it's funny. Like we chase this like drug, obviously, of feeling like the big production number ending and everybody like going crazy, and you're like, oh yeah, this is such a great feeling. And this is a new version of that for me, where like I can feel people spent in this way of like, whoo, I'm like leaving something in the theater that I'm gonna like never have back, like a little like piece of your soul. You're just like, wow, I really experienced something profound right there. And that is so human to me. Like, I mean, I'm a big like basketball fan. There's something amazing about like, I've been to a few basketball games that have been like deciding finals games where you see like the end of the season, the confetti fall, and you watch the players and like they're all crying and so are you. It's this odd thing where you're like experiencing something so cathartic that you're like, oh, whoa, it's a release. It's a real catharsis. And like, I think The Notebook is about, of course, like this romantic love story that people are swept away by, but mostly and especially in our telling, it's about just like being a person. It's about just the passage of time and who you spend your time with and what you spend your time doing and is it worth it and all that. And like, we've all had that experience and like thought about that in deep, probably like too deep ways these days of like, what am I doing with my life? Like, how can I be the best person I can be? Like in this environment where there are pressures to be the best person you can be, it's a lot to be a person. And I think this show like really just articulates that and also like affirms it. It's like people are imperfect. People are like, you're having like a journey. So like have your journey, keep the people close and like spread love and do you know, these are deep
like
things.
Ali's character, she kind of makes some shitty decisions.
Yeah, of course.
But that is human.
Yes, exactly.
It's normal.
And you find yourself rooting for it. Like you find yourself being like, okay, yes, like you're in this dark, deep spot. You are like figuring yourself out. And we all want the time and the grace and the patience that say like Noah or her mom like gives her eventually by the end. Like we all want that grace from other people to figure your life out. Like we all want that. People are sitting down feeling like, oh, I've felt love before I felt these things. But deeper, I think, is like, wow, like the patience, like the humanity that these people are showing each other is like, it's deep. So I'm thankful that people are able to gather and like experience that out there. I'm really grateful to feel it because you really do feel this catharsis like washing over you, and we're having it too, obviously. I mean, like we're having that same catharsis, and like it's a unique feedback loop in a show that I've not really ever experienced. Like people, of course, there's rises and falls of like Waitress, you know, you can leave and be like, oh, that was a sad show, I was moved, but like it's something else like here for sure. I've never experienced that. No. Yeah.
And I would love to know as well, because actually 3 people are playing one character. Because if you haven't seen the musical, you've got young Ali, Noah, middle Noah, and the older Noah. So during the rehearsal process, how did you 3 work with becoming like one?
Yeah.
You know?
It was, I would say what was cool about it is that it began as like a really taught thing of like, okay, this is a move that Noah does all the time where he's like nursing an injury on his back. So we're always going to like reach for our back here, and then that's going to melt like, you know, into the other characters doing the same thing. Or there's, you know, Ali had like a few little like moves of, you know, brushing stuff off, like these sort of tricks that they worked in. And then as we spent more time together, like through osmosis, those things started to fall away. And I think they did because we were all like, no, now we really are watching each other and congealing in a way where we don't have to like do the thing, like wink, like we're all the same person. Though Michael Greif, one of our directors, always jokes that he has like a made up like mystery aunt that he always says like, when my aunt is here, and like the aunt is that person who comes and sees, you know, some show and leaves, and they're like, I wasn't sure what it was about, you know, after sitting there for 2.5 hours. And so in the opening number, we worked a long time as like, the only thing that these people have to know at the end is that those 3 are the same person and those 3 are the same person, and then we'll be able to proceed with the show. That is our like big 4-minute thing we have to get done. And so in that, there's a lot of like, we are the same, we're kneeling at the same time, we're doing all that, you know, which is nice, but always does make me chuckle a little bit. It's like, I think they get it.
I loved that. I love that about the show.
Yeah, it's so uniquely done. Like it's really, and especially just like the casting, of course, right? Like there's a universality of the experience of just seeing yourself, no matter who you are, hopefully in these roles, but also like there's this dream-like thing that allows it to also be literal. Like, I don't think people are really thinking, oh, that's one separate couple and that's a separate couple. It's like there's a mystique like around the staging and everything, and the way we're all three on stage at once a lot of the time that makes it like we really are just watching both everyone's story and one like consistent one, which is a tough thing to pull off again, like that I think they did a really good job with. Yeah.
It was a really good job. Really good job. The iconic rain moment, actually does happen. I just thought Joy deserved a medal for getting soaking like that.
Well, girl, me too. I'm out there getting soaked. I am fully drenched to the bone.
Was it both of you then?
Oh yeah, we're both drenched.
How?
We are fully drenched.
How? At the beginning of Act 2, I just think then, are you like soggy?
Well, so that's the thing. So again, they think of everything. So we get soaked, but there are two rain bars that are parallel to each other on the stage. So we can stand in a place where they're not falling directly on us.
Okay.
So we get wet enough to be like, it's real water because of course people are like, it's a projection. It's like, it's obviously not, it's dripping off my nose. But then we can like step into this space, say our lines, and then we get into that little like hallway mudroom scene where she's changing and I run off to get her the shirt. And in that moment, a dresser, Herb, shouts to Herb, has like the like a warm towel and everything and kind of dries me. And then when we go off kissing, we have a little scenelet and the beginning of the next song, Iron in the Fridge, to totally strip down and put on a warm set of everything, and there's towels and everything. So it's like getting out of the shower. Like you're just, but the one part I will say is like when the water is one thing because it's warm. So
is it warm?
It is warm.
Oh,
so it's like a hot tub. So you're literally like it, which is great, right? But if you've ever like gotten out of a hot tub and walked into an air conditioned house, like that feeling of like, whoa, now the cold air is like all over me and you're freezing. When the water stops, you're in like a freezing theater on stage where you're like, that's ice for like 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. So I'm grateful to get the warm clothes on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I love that. I love all these like tricks and I want to know it all.
Yeah.
Then you originated the role of the man in black in The Wrong Man.
Yeah.
Which you had a drama desk nomination for.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, because I wanted to mention the nomination, is being nominated for a particular role, is that big here in America?
Kinda. I mean, like, I think it can't hurt. Like, I mean, I'm sort of like egoless about the awards only because like it's so out of your control, like everything, right? But I listen to a lot of like pop culture podcasts where they talk about like the Emmys and different stuff, and it's like, I mean, it's so above our pay grade. Like you do your thing and you either get swept up in the culture or you don't. So I was grateful to be recognized for sure, but that show, I just have like a really like deep belief in the power of. Like, it was written by this guy Ross Golan, who wrote like, he writes for pop writers, so he writes for like Pink and Ariana Grande, like Maroon 5. He wrote like Dangerous Woman, like these hits that you're like, wow, like he wrote these songs. When he's not working on pop music, he wrote this like song cycle thing called The Wrong Man. That's about a guy who's wrongfully accused of murder and the guy who actually did it, and the woman kind of like at the center of it. And we did. Kurt Deutsch, who produced The Notebook as well, is like in the music world more, and he knew Ross and so brought Ross to the creative team from Hamilton, Tommy Kail, the director, and Alex Lacamoire, who did all the musical arrangements, and sat and Ross played it for them and said, would you want to dramatize this and like put this up as a musical? And they did. They bit and they brought it to MCC Theater and we did it, and it was... I mean, because this guy wrote these songs that you like jam to, and the music is just bangs. Like, it was so good.
Can we hear this?
There is an album that Ross did himself of just him and a guitar and like a couple other instruments. That's really good. It's on like any streaming service, like Spotify and all that. But he wrote amazing songs for it, and it was like a 90-minute show. So good. Josh Henry was the lead of it and was so good. And as things happen, like he got a TV show, then the pandemic and all this. They're still developing it, like working on it a little bit, but these things again that you just do that are these like flash in the pan things where you're asking me like, oh, you got this award nomination for this thing. I'm like, yes, because it was so great. Like, it is so great, and I hope people get to see it. But like,
there's so much stuff. Are you hoping it will come back?
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah. But it's like you just never know. You know, it's like you really things can just kind of die on the vine, and people get busy and like, creatives get busy and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you're kind of waiting for everybody to coalesce, and maybe it never happens. I mean, I was joking on the way here. I was talking to my friend on the phone. I'm like, because, you know, you never know what like gigs like people like have heard about and want to know about and things like this. They're like, I heard you worked with the Backstreet Boys, like these random things. And you're just like, oh yeah. Like, and I was thinking like, there are these things that at the time I was like, this is going to be like the start of my career. This is like the biggest thing ever. Did one reading, thought it was the most amazing show ever. Never heard from it again. No. Like, you know, it's like, and is it still being developed? Literally no. It's like, it's so
It's
odd.
like you have to keep a slight emotional detachment from it. Do you know what I mean?
I did readings for The Notebook before the pandemic.
Yes, I had that down.
Yeah, and of The Outsiders as well.
Yes, I had
And of
that.
Water for Elephants, right? So you're like in all of these shows and you're thinking, people are like, oh, what an embarrassment of riches. Like, what a blessing. Like, you're in all these things. And for sure, to a point, yes. And it never happens that all those things would come at the same time because of the backlog over the pandemic. It actually is like kind of irritating.
Yeah.
Only because, and like, I've never really said that, but like, the truth is like, we work so hard with this detachment of knowing that like any day leading up to the first moment of rehearsal of The Notebook, they could have been like, by the way, we're just taking this in another direction, and they could have just gone with somebody else, and there would have been no repercussion, no money for me, nothing. You just develop and do it and hope that you get kept. To be involved in 3 buckets like that, being like, hopefully one of these things will happen, and then it's like, haha, it's actually all gonna happen. You'll have to pick. It's just like, wow, yes, what a blessing. Like, so it is odd. It's a really weird career, man. We're in such an odd thing.
But are you happy that you went with a Notebook direction?
100%, 100%. It's the most moving show I've ever been a part of. It is the most human show I've ever been a part of in terms of I just get to be myself. Like, I really just get to deliver the lines as myself with people who are themselves. There's no affect. There's no thing that we're trying to like glaze onto it. It's really just like a human, gorgeous show. The music, everything. I mean, I could go on. I believe in this show like more than I've ever believed in something that I'm in, and I really believe in its power. And like we will see in the years to come as people like begin doing it all over the country, and there's a tour and these things, like it will continue to move people, and that is very special. And also shouts to Marianne and Dorian, the older couple, being in a show where like older folks are grounding and leading the thing. I will be searching for that for the rest of my life. Yeah.
You love a movie musical, right?
Sure.
Because In the Heights.
Yes, I sang a little bit on that. Yes,
you did. Tick, Tick, Boom.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Ben and I were watching it. It was about a week after we saw The Notebook, and I said, I swear we just saw that man there
you
on
did.
Stage about a week ago.
That finance
and so we
douchebag
Googled.
asking about, we
were like, oh my God, it is him.
Yes.
Him.
Yeah, that was super cool because we filmed that during like right around when the vaccine was coming out for COVID. So we were in our hotel rooms. Oh my God, actually. During the pandemic, I pivoted full-time to political organizing. And so during that time, I was in a hotel, locked in a room, literally getting groceries delivered, like knock, knock, they would run away and you would eat your banana and like your thing. And was sitting in this room with a full keyboard and everything in a hotel in Brooklyn, running these events on Zoom leading up to the election. And for the 10 days leading up to the election and the 10 days after in 2020, I was locked in a hotel room alone. And the only people that I got to see were people on Zoom that we were working with or going on set for like 8 hours one day and being able to connect with everybody, being like, what is happening? Like, can you believe this? Like, we're here. But otherwise, literally zero human interaction that wasn't on the phones. It was something.
That
it
is
was
just
something.
Psychologically.
Yes.
You can't even.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Do you like the whole being in front of the camera, re-recording, or is the live theater? Like, I find it completely different. I've done both.
Oh yeah, I agree. Frankly, like the money, not what you're being paid, of course, but you are being paid a lot. But like the money in film and TV is just so astounding to me because you can create some really amazing stuff. Like when we did Tick, Tick, Boom, they recreated Jonathan Larson's apartment like to the cassette tape on the shelf type thing, to the point where family of his came and had like emotional like overwhelm like seeing it because it just looked so like what they knew it to have been. And like you can't do that on stage. It's just like but what's nice about being on stage is you get a million tries. So like, I think of that, you know, when I watched Tick, Tick, Boom, of course, I thought Lynn did a great job directing it. I really think it's a good movie. Andrew Garfield's sick in it. And in my performance that you watch for, obviously, I'm just kind of like, oh, like, I did that and I could have done that differently or I could have not or whatever, but great job. And you just kind of have to leave it.
Yeah.
Whereas like theater every day, I mean, I get to do the Notebook tonight and I get to do it with, Joy's gone and Aisha starts on Friday. So it'll be, Kim or Hillary, one of our covers will be on and there will be like new exciting things to happen. And then tomorrow I'll do that again and I'll do it again that evening. And like you get a million stabs at it, which is cool.
Yeah. With a different person as well.
Yeah.
It's like a
verse.
Yeah. I have one last question, and I like to ask a question like this because you've had an unbelievable career, and it's going to carry on forever. And I feel so grateful that our listeners have just been able to hear you talk. Like, we're so thankful. What would be the advice you give to 10-year-old Ryan?
I would say that you're going to go into this career and there are going to be many, many, many people that you meet. And there will be people who are backstage. There will be people who are helping you get like a belt for your costume. And then there will be people that you're like starring in Broadway shows with. And that all of those people are full, individual, realized people that deserve respect and care and empathy. And not that I didn't have that for people who were sort of like backstage, like it sounds like that's what I'm alluding to. But I think what I'm saying is because I'm so grateful to be in our show now at the Notebook, there is virtually no divide at the Notebook between people who you would usually assume to have like more power or more like cachet or social capital than the people who you would assume do not. It's one big community of people that we celebrate equally all the time, from like the band who's up on a platform that you literally see at the very end, but that we're backstage with all the time, to our like wardrobe folks who have a little area of like community with like little snacks and things where we go and we kind of talk shop with everybody. Our wig folks are right there. The covers are like not just locked up in their tower dressing room. They're coming down and milling around. It really feels like a neighborhood. And that's new for me because in Broadway shows a lot, you have these people who, frankly, the crew and folks aren't really used to being addressed by the cast, and they're used to being treated like garbage because a lot of actors are just like narcissists, honestly. It's a trait that I think like it runs in us because we love attention and we love being on stage in front of 1,000 people. Let's just be frank about it. And I think this world, like the Notebook and this community has taught me, it's like bringing people together is like a source of power. And we worked really hard to do that. We have like running games backstage. Like, I don't know if you watch The Traitors, but there's like,
I love The Traitors.
Girl, we should have done the whole episode about that. We're doing season 2 of The Traitors at the Notebook right now. There's 40 people who have played each time. We run the game. We do it full. They're blind votes, Google Forms, everything. Okay. They've already caught a traitor in season 2, so people are hyped, and I have a feeling they're going to catch one. I'm running it. I'm Alan Cumming.
Okay.
Or who's the gal who hosted in the UK?
Claudia Winkleman.
Is she famous over there? What's her deal?
Yeah.
What's her deal?
She's famous. She's a presenter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we love her.
She's
Fringe,
everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, please. Yes, she's everything.
And
the absolute. Yes, girl. Like I am all about. I watch all the seasons, all the countries. Like I'm Traitors deep.
I love it.
So yeah, and we were able, like things like that. Everybody is. I hesitate to use the word family, but it's the closest thing that it's felt like. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thanks.
Good luck tonight. Hope you don't get too wet.
Yeah, it's inevitable. But 64 more times, but who's counting?
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, y'all.